The cul-de-sac was a war zone of privilege, and HOA Karen was its self-appointed general. Her screeching voice cut through the evening air like a chainsaw, demanding respect she hadn't earned. It was a muggy August evening in Willow Creek, the kind where the air clung to your skin and tempers flared like wildfires. I was in my living room, sipping iced tea, when the first wail of an ambulance siren pierced the quiet. My heart sank. Mrs. Delaney, my elderly neighbor, had been struggling with her heart condition all week. I rushed to the window, expecting to see the ambulance pulling into her driveway. Instead, I saw HOA Karen, all 300 pounds of her, planted like a boulder in the middle of my driveway, arms crossed, her sister Lynn at her side. Their SUV, a gleaming monstrosity, was parked diagonally, blocking the ambulance's path. "You can't park here," HOA bellowed, her voice dripping with disdain. "This is HOA property, and I'm the president. You're trespassing." The paramedics, two young men in crisp uniforms, exchanged exasperated glances. One of them, a wiry guy named Jake, stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, we need to get through. There's a medical emergency." HOA's eyes narrowed, her chins wobbling as she leaned forward. "Emergency? Humph. Probably just old Delaney faking it again to get attention. You're not tearing up my street." Lynn, her mirror image in both bulk and attitude, chimed in. "Yeah, we pay for this pavement. Move your truck somewhere else." The ambulance's lights flashed red and blue, painting the scene in urgency, but the sisters stood their ground, oblivious to the stakes. I couldn't believe it. Mrs. Delaney was gasping for air somewhere, and these two were playing gatekeeper over a strip of asphalt. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 as I stepped onto my porch. The operator's voice was steady, but I could hear her typing furiously as I described the scene. "Officers are on the way," she said. "Stay safe and keep us updated." I hung up, my hands shaking with rage. HOA had always been a tyrant, issuing fines for untrimmed hedges, berating kids for skateboarding, but this was a new low. The paramedics tried reasoning again. "Ma'am, we're not here to argue," Jake said, his voice tighter now. "A woman's life is at stake. Move your car, or we'll have to call the police." HOA laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Go ahead. I know the chief. You think you can scare me?" Lynn smirked, pulling out her phone to record the encounter, no doubt planning to post it online with a caption about standing up to entitled city workers. The neighbors started to gather, drawn by the commotion. Mr. Patel from across the street stood with his arms crossed, his jaw tight. Mrs. Kim, who'd always been too timid to challenge HOA's HOA reign, clutched her dog's leash, her eyes wide with disbelief. "This is insane," Mr. Patel muttered. "They're going to let someone die over a parking spot?" I nodded, my stomach churning. Every second the sisters stood there, Mrs. Delaney's chances slipped further away. Minutes dragged on, each one heavier than the last. The paramedics radioed for backup, their voices clipped with urgency. Jake knelt by the ambulance, checking his equipment, while his partner, Sam, kept trying to negotiate. "Please, just move the car. We're not here to fight you." But HOA was relentless, her voice rising to a fever pitch. "You don't tell me what to do. I run this neighborhood. You're lucky I don't fine you for disturbing the peace." Then, like a miracle, the sound of another siren cut through the noise. A police cruiser rolled up, its lights casting stark shadows. Two officers stepped out, their faces unreadable. The taller one, Officer Ramirez, approached HOA, his voice low but commanding. "Ma'am, step aside. You're obstructing an emergency vehicle." HOA's face twisted into a scowl. "Obstructing? This is my property. I have rights." Lynn nodded vigorously, still filming, her phone shaking in her meaty hands. Ramirez didn't flinch. "Interfering with emergency services is a crime. Move your vehicle now, or you're under arrest." The word arrest hit HOA like a slap. Her mouth opened, then closed, her bravado crumbling. Lynn, less composed, started shouting, "You can't do this. We'll sue." But the officers were done talking. Ramirez motioned to his partner, who pulled out handcuffs. The crowd gasped as the metal glinted in the fading light. HOA's face went pale, her eyes darting to the neighbors watching in silence. For the first time, I saw something like fear in her expression. She'd built her empire on bullying and intimidation, but now the consequences were closing in. "Fine," she snapped, waddling to her SUV. Lynn followed, muttering curses, but they moved the car, tires screeching as they backed into their own driveway. The paramedics didn't waste a second. The ambulance roared forward, pulling into Mrs. Delaney's driveway. Jake and Sam sprinted to her door, stretcher in tow. I followed, my heart pounding, praying they weren't too late. Inside, Mrs. Delaney was slumped in her armchair, her face gray, her breathing shallow. The paramedics worked with quiet efficiency, hooking her up to oxygen, checking her vitals. "She's stable, but we need to move fast," Jake said, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. As they wheeled her out, the neighbors parted like a sea, their faces a mix of relief and anger. HOA and Lynn stood by their car, surrounded by the officers. Ramirez was reading them their rights, his voice calm but unyielding. "You have the right to remain silent." Lynn's phone was now in an evidence bag, her bravado replaced by panic. HOA, for once, was speechless, her hands cuffed behind her back. The ambulance pulled away, its siren fading into the distance. I stood on my porch, watching as the officers led the sisters to the cruiser. The crowd murmured, a mix of shock and grim satisfaction. HOA had ruled Willow Creek with an iron fist, fining people for minor infractions, berating anyone who dared question her. But tonight, her reign had ended not with a bang, but with the quiet click of handcuffs. Later, I learned Mrs. Delaney made it to the hospital in time. A heart attack, the doctors said, but she'd pull through. The news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire, along with the story of HOA and Lynn's arrest. The HOA board held an emergency meeting the next day, stripping HOA of her presidency. The sisters faced charges for obstructing emergency services, a felony that carried real weight. Their social media accounts, once filled with smug rants, went silent. In the weeks that followed, Willow Creek felt lighter. Neighbors started talking again, sharing stories of HOA's tyranny over coffee and backyard barbecues. Mrs. Kim planted wildflowers in her yard, defying the old HOA rules. Mr. Patel organized a block party, something HOA had always vetoed. The cul-de-sac, once a battleground, became a community again. I walked by HOA's house one evening, its windows dark, the SUV gone. Word was they'd moved, unable to face the neighbors' stares. I thought about the sisters, their arrogance undone by a single moment of hubris. They'd thought they were untouchable, but life has a way of balancing the scales. Mrs. Delaney sent me a thank you note from the hospital, her handwriting shaky but full of warmth. I framed it, a reminder that even the smallest acts like calling 911 can shift the tide. HOA and Lynn's story became a cautionary tale in Willow Creek, a lesson in humility and accountability. Power, wielded without compassion, is a fragile thing, and when it breaks, it shatters spectacularly. The end.